So welcome, Mike.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, and thank you for having me.
Great. We are really excited to have you on our show today. And I wanted to get into something that I know you're very passionate about. I've been reviewing some of your blogs, and lately you've been doing a lot of work and talking about the need for creativity and innovation within internal audit. So how can an internal auditor be creative and innovative when implementing the new 2013 COSO framework? But more importantly, what about other internal auditors when COSO isn't the flavor of the year for an internal audit group? How can they be creative when it's not a one-time big project?
It's a great question because what's going on with COSO right now, I think, really speaks to the challenge that auditors have. And with the new framework that came out, I see that being as both the positive about creativity and the negative about the way internal auditors approach subjects and approach new ideas. Let's talk about the negative side of it first. One of the things I have found as I talk to internal auditors about COSO and ICF is this real sitting back wanting to hear the answers. And in particular, what I see is such a focus on Sarbanes-Oxley. I understand where that comes from, but it still speaks to a blinders approach. The ICF framework is about so much more than financial reporting, yet people are sitting waiting for the answers. And that's where the creativity and innovation comes in, recognizing that, yes, we have this specific need, but there is so much more out there. Auditors need to be creative in looking towards something new to do, looking for new approaches. The thing that I mentioned, they sit back, they're kind of waiting for answers, and this isn't the only area I've seen this with auditors, the part that somewhat frustrates me. I've done a lot of work on social media. People say, how do I audit it? I've done work on marketing. How do I audit it? I see people asking very specifically about how to perform audits. If you understand the risk, if you understand the area, you know how to do the audit. So back to COSO, I see people saying, what does the framework mean? How do I apply it? Well, these are people who understand Sarbanes-Oxley. These are experts. And the expectation, if there was creativity, if there was innovation, would be for them to say, this is how I did it. Here's the new one. This is how I would apply it. And move forward, not sitting back for answers. Now, that's kind of the negative side. What I will say, is on the positive side, I have seen audit shops really approaching this the right way. I've had the opportunity, 2 or 3 groups, to do some of the training on the new framework. And what they're doing is they're saying, we see something new. We want to use this in our audit work. We want to be the ones to talk to our executives and talk to them about what's new out there. Because, again, the COSO framework is so much bigger. The change is, I've heard this line a million times. I'm sure a lot of people have heard this. The change is not revolutionary, it's evolutionary. Mm-hmm. It makes it easier to understand. But now auditors this sometimes gives auditors that chance to take a look, see what's new and different, see what's happening, and then apply it, look for the broader, and maybe almost an inflection point. We kind of knew ICF was out there. Here's a new one. Here's a chance to learn more about it. So the creativity comes in how we look at this and how broadly we apply it. And, you mentioned flavor of the month. That's the other side of this. It should be more than a flavor of the month. But if people just focus on what do I do with Sarbanes-Oxley, that's all it will be. It will bring us back to the good old days of tick and tie auditing. Creativity and innovation is about auditing, looking into the future and looking for something new.
Right. There's some key examples that Volume 3 and 4 have. 3 is on the effectiveness, and 4 is more like I call it the SOX Bible for COSO. Right. And I recently did a class at an IIA chapter, 8 hours, and one of the examples, without giving them any answers, was an ethics audit. So one of the examples in the book is an ethics audit. And the question posed to the group is like, okay, so give me the top 3 steps to do that, right? And they all looked around at each other like, oh, she's actually asking us to do an audit program. I said, this isn't really hard. I just want an outline. Like, you're coming to the audit committee. You're telling them you want an ethics audit. How are you going to do it? I mean, what are the top 3 steps? And I didn't even want all the steps required. I said, let's think about auditing, completeness and accuracy. Okay, what's the population? What are we looking for? Okay, great. So how do we get that done? And that's where the conversation started versus ticking and saying, so I've done a couple of different examples like that where I'm posing the question to them to say, okay, well, just walk me through just the basics, just the shell of what we're trying to do. And you're right. It's just they would love for me as a lecturer just to give them the answer sheet in a PowerPoint slide and add a little bit of humor so they just don't fall asleep through the entire 8 hours.
Well, that's exactly right. And that's in the training, everybody loves the control activities part when you look at the 5 components because we know it. We're auditors. Man, the minute you get into control environment, some people it's like a monkey watching a magic trick. They're just glazing over on it. And I know when it first came out, that's the one part I looked at and went, how the heck am I supposed to do that? I will say one of the things I love is the underlying principles. That gives it a lot better. But those principles can drive an audit, a control environment. And the minute you start doing your audit work up at the control environment part, which ties into the ethics you were talking about, the minute you're adding so much more value, you're looking at the broad risks, you're looking at the broad problems. You've got findings and issues and concerns and just a conversation with the executive suite, with the C-suite, they may not have ever had before, and they'll look at you in a new light.
Exactly. So what do you think is may be overlooked by internal auditors when they implement the new COSO framework? Is it just that they're looking for someone to give them the answers, and then they're overlooking some of these gems of value add? Or, I mean, what's your thought?
I think that is the big thing. And, again, we focus more on control activities. We understand it. Monitoring activities we understand. There's some of these that, clear back in 92 when it came out, and with a 30-year, I like the way you emphasize that, by the way, with a 30-year career, I've watched a lot of those changes go on. And looking at it, information and communication and control environment, again, just kind of looking at them, not sure what they were. And those are the ones I think they're tougher to get a handle on. So we need to go and focus on them as auditors because that's where the value will be. I mean, I put those as the top 2. Risk assessment, we're starting to get a grasp on how it means and what it means. But the other one, monitoring activities, let's talk about that one real quick. The thing to recognize is it's not just monitoring controls, and this is the other thing I see a lot of auditors missing. It's not about monitoring controls. It's about monitoring the entire framework. So it's about monitoring the information. It's about monitoring the control environment. It's a broader picture than many people look at. That's the other opportunity often missed in the past. And this, again, the great part about this coming out, it's that chance for everybody to kind of reboot, make sure they understand the broad perspective, not just financial reporting.